I have partnered up with Alois to make a brand new Mordekaiser guide, and I would say it is the best Mordekaiser guide out there right now. I have given out every single piece of information that I could think of. Absolutely anything that I use, I gave out in this guide. Explaining mid to late game stages, itemization, runes, combos, absolutely anything and everything I could think of. Even video matchups, and some of these video matchups go on to be 20 minutes or longer, just for that one particular matchup. Currently, there are not all top lane champions in video format, but over time I will add more and more of them. This is also where the tips and tricks section of the matchup spreadsheet went, in case you were all wondering. As part of the agreement, I had to move it to this guide exclusively. Every other guide I have is still completely untouched, and the rest of the spreadsheet on top of the mobafire guide is still also the same on the Mordekaiser side. If you want to check it out, you can use the link in the description. With all that being said, please enjoy this video. I think this is actually a pretty skilled matchup for both sides. Darius might have an advantage, especially before level 6, but not necessarily, depending on how the Mordekaiser plays it as well, and what setup the Mordekaiser uses. For example, in this situation he has Flash Teleport, and is running Doran's Shield, so it is way less aggressive. He could have started with Doran's Ring and Ignite, and then he could have actually contested me here, especially if he also doesn't allow me to cheese him like this. What he could have done is stayed in the first brush that I walked through to get to him and ward the middle brush, and if he does that the moment I walk through the middle brush, he can use a Q onto me, which will give him a health advantage to start the fight with. On top of that, he can also space back, and as he's backing away he would be able to get his Q again, and through that he can make it to where I cannot deny him the minion experience here. But because he does not do any of these things, I can walk up right behind the minions and deny him. In this situation he's running Inspiration secondary as well, so there is a chance he's going for the approach velocity plus magical footwear setup, and if he is running that, I know for a fact that he has no secondary runes up until he gets either Rylai's or his magical footwear boots kick in, so I can try to abuse that in the early game. The early levels play a very important role in this matchup. Levels 1 and 2 you are both kind of equal, and then between levels 3 to 5 Darius has an advantage, I'd say, and an easier time actually fighting the Mordekaiser, and then at level 6 it's either even to Mordekaiser sided slightly. It all depends on how the both of you play it, and what items you go for. For example, if Mordekaiser rushes Rylai's, the moment he gets it, I can no longer space him, so I have to win the fight in melee range or I just lose. Which is why I love to rush Spear of Shojin in this matchup, because the damage amp you get from it is really high. It gets so high to where he won't even be able to press his W sometimes, because you can do E into ult and instantly one-shot him. He can pull you in melee range with his E, so you get the Q heal and Q bleed denied, or even save his ultimate for when you hit 5 stacks, so he steals 10% of your enhanced attack damage. I love to play both sides of this matchup, honestly. The only time I actually don't like it is when the Darius goes for Ignite, because he will have some ridiculously high kill pressure. Obviously, it means in the mid game he will suffer more, because he doesn't have that ghost to catch up to people, but in lane he will be way more oppressive. And there is also a chance the Darius can rush Maw of Mortius, and if he rushes Maw, he kinda hyper counters you at that point. But again, much like him taking Ignite, it means it will take an overall toll on his build unless you have like 3 or 4 AP champions on your team, because otherwise the Maw is going to be really weak as a rush.
An enemy has been slain.
I don't really need to look to freeze on my side of the lane here, simply because of how powerful I am, but if I want to secure an even larger lead, I can do that. So I just walk behind his turret and hold his wave over there. And then my minions will crash into his turret, and once that happens, my wave is going to fight 2 enemy waves, which means it's always gonna perma push into me. Even if my minions end up being stronger, 12 minions should basically always push into 6 minions, unless my minions are like 15% stronger than the enemy minions. And even then, it will still freeze for a solid amount of time.
Turret plating will fall soon. Unstoppable. Legendary. Your team has destroyed an inhibitor. Your team has destroyed a turret.
This matchup mostly revolves around dodging his fling. If you get hit by it, you lose. If you dodge it, you win. However, this isn't always the case, especially if the Urgot isn't running Ignite. In this situation, he is running Teleport. So even if he flings me, he still might not get a kill out of it. That Ignite is very powerful in the early game. He can also use his E to dodge my E if timed correctly. It will just go through the entire pool and still fling me. But I can also time my E to fully stop his. So you have some mind games over there. You can go for Warden's Mail into Urgot if you want to, because each small shot from his W will be lowered by the Warden's Mail effect, and that will give you a great deal of tankiness. You can also rush Bramble Vest for the same reason, but instead of being tankier, you get more damage, because each small shot will proc that reflect damage off of Bramble. And as an item, Sterak's Gauge is rather solid into him, because his Execute procs when you are below 25% health, and Sterak's pops the moment you hit 30% health. So it will give you a longer time to fight him before he executes you. Be careful of his level 9 power spike because it is rather high, as well as his 1 item power spike. Usually Urgot will rush Black Cleaver, and that item spike is actually rather huge for him. He will apply it quite quickly with his W, and the damage he deals will stack up so fast onto you. Once again, I can just look to go behind his turret and hold the wave there. And if I do that, eventually my wave will crash into his turret. Unless he also decides to hold my wave. But then I can just walk around and stop that. And eventually it will still push into me. Which means this lane is going to be permanently frozen. And the only way he's gonna be able to do that without dying is if someone comes to help him break the freeze.
Has been slain. A summoner has disconnected.
There's a lot of outplaying that the both of you can do in this matchup. For example, one thing that Jax will basically always be able to do in the early game is jump with his Q to dodge your Q. His rank 1 Q is 8 seconds, and your rank 1 Q is 9. Up until level 7 or so, you will always get your first Q dodged. And then you might have a chance to get your second Q off onto him if you actually instantly use it the moment it's off cooldown. Another thing that you can do is use your W just before his counter-strike ends. You will activate your W and do the animation just before the counter-strike ends. And that will allow you to actually still deal the damage onto Jax. Another thing you can do is use your E whenever he jumps onto you, and that will allow you to disengage him. But the issue here is that you will eventually run out of mana, and rather quickly if you do it every single time he jumps in, because your E costs a ton of mana early on. You can run Mana Flow Band if you want to instead of Axiom Arcanist here, and that will allow you to have even more pools. And then this issue won't be that big of a deal. What I like to do is rush Spear of Shojin. I love the ability haste the item gives you, on top of the damage amp of the item. It is also really important to see what setup Jax takes. He can run something like Flash Ignite plus Lethal Tempo, or maybe Flash Teleport with Grasp of the Undying. In this case, he went Flash TP plus Lethal Tempo. He won't have as much kill pressure without that Ignite, but he will auto attack me a lot. You can go for Plated Steel Caps into Jax, especially if he actually goes for Lethal Tempo. The issue is that you might not be able to do this always. There's team comps where you might need Mercury Treads for the crowd control, or maybe Boots of Swiftness because they have a lot of slows. I love to play this matchup once you get that Spear of Shojin, because you will be able to rotate 2 or 3 W plus Q combos onto Jax every single time you fight him. And then spacing also becomes really important because you won't have that Stridebreaker slow. After Shojin, you can go for Stridebreaker though. And after that, you can build whatever the enemy comp demands. Maybe you need K-Neck Rookern because they have a lot of magic damage. Maybe Maw of Mamordius is good. Maybe a Sterak's Gauge feels nice. But early on, you can fight him even before Shojin. It is just overall a really nice skilled matchup. It still baffles me that I did not get a single Q heal here. I was expecting at least a 2-man Q heal off of this E plus Q combo, but I ended up hitting nobody and I die. It genuinely shocked me.
Double kill.
I wasn't expecting all 5 enemies to be topside here because Atakan is just spawning. And off of this, my team does actually secure the Atakan, so this death is 100% worth it for us.
Destroyed a turret.
Thank you guys for joining me in this video. I hope you found the information useful, and I will see you in the next video, hopefully very soon.
Night is falling on the old world. You won't live to see the new one.